It'd be better if Mr. Smallwood came first.
Yes. Pardon, Dave?
Might be better if Mr. Smallwood came first.
All right. Would you like to go first then? And we'll just
All right.
go over by the... Are
Okay.
you ready for us?
Tell us when.
Okay, anytime, Mr. Smallwood.
Okay, we're going.
Okay.
Sit here.
Okay, that's good. Hold it right there.
That might very well be the largest private library in the whole of Canada. There are public libraries, lots of them, scores of them in Canada, public libraries that haven't got as many as 18,000 books.
Kathy, you can start any time, huh? Okay.
Okay. Mr. Smallwood, you have a very large collection of books here. Just looking around, that's obvious. And you're known as a voracious reader. Has that always been so? Were you a reader as a boy?
Yes, I was, especially at Bishopfield College. I credit Bishopfield College above all with one thing, that they made me a lover of reading. They taught me to be a reader, and they encouraged me. Because, you know, when all is said and done, you can go to the best schools in the world and the best universities in the world, and they cannot, there's no way, unless you spent 30 or 40 years as a student in college or in schools, there's no way that you can learn as much from a school as you can by reading. And so learning to read and learning to be a practiced reader and learning to love reading and learning to need reading, to need it to be part of your life, that's the principle, it seems to me, the principal job that a school has, or a college. Apart altogether from the famous English public school ideas of playing the game, of being decent, of being honorable, of being truthful, which are pretty useful things in anybody's life. Apart from that, the one great thing that a teacher can do for you is to make you a lover of reading.
And you are a lover of books.
Yes.
Just looking around, there are books on a great many topics. When you began, if you remember back to when you were a boy, what sorts of books did you read then? Did you have a variety of interests?
The same as every boy who is a reader, all the Buffalo Bill stories, and Sexton Blake and Claude Duval, and all the adventure stories and the detective stories. You go through, and then the adventure stories. You go through that. That's the sheer romanticism of reading, and you never do grow out of romanticism, but you grow out of that particular exemplification of romanticism. It's too bad if it happens to anybody to grow out of a romantic outlook on life and on the world and on people, because it's the one thing perhaps above all that distinguishes us from the animals, isn't it? Our romanticism. I went through the usual and the normal evolution of taste in reading and practice in reading, and maybe in some cases I went through it faster than some others, and exhausted my interest in this aspect, and then the next, and the next, and the next, and the next, going always toward a more serious part of literature, of reading.
When did you begin to collect books, Mr. Smallwood?
About 60 years ago.
And did you begin because of any one particular interest? What did you begin to collect?
I began to collect when I was at Bishopfield College. I could hardly wait for school to be over every weekday before going down to Water Street to Sammy Garland's, S.C. Garland bookstore, which is a 5-story building. an astonishing thing to find in St. John's in 1911 and 12 and 1913 and 14 and 15, a thing that was not much better anywhere in North America. S.E. Garland. The building is still there on Water Street. And it is the basement and the main floor and 2, 3, 4 floors above it, full of books. And of course, what you would buy would be the penny dreadfuls, you know, the school stories they publish once a week, I guess, in England. The Harry Wharton and Tom Merry and Company. Schools, there were stories about schoolboys. And then detective stories and adventure stories. Spring-Heeled Jack, Claude Duval, the Highwayman. And then, of course, the detective stories, Sexton Blake and Nick Carter. These were American. And you would devour those. As a matter of fact, what I used to do was use my pocket money to buy them, get home to Bishop Field, I was a boarder there, and read them and then start renting them to the other boys. A cent, I think I used to charge. Maybe it was 2 cents to read. And in this way, I would accumulate enough money to buy more books and then repeat the process. So I began collecting, and collecting for the purpose of reading chiefly, and also for the purpose of collecting a little money to buy more books to read so that I could rent them and get more money to buy more books.
Well, what part of what we see here now, does this represent the sum total of the books that you've amassed over the years?
No. No, I had 3 other libraries besides this one. I collected a library of maybe 500 or 600 books. That was a lot of books. I remember a famous lawyer in St. John's who died, and they had a sale of his effects, and I went to the sale to get his books, and he had 70 or 80 books, and that was looked upon as quite a library, you know. But a collection of 500 or 600, 700 books was absolutely phenomenal. I had accumulated that many books, some of which I remember to this moment, but I sold them for maybe $200 or $300, I don't remember, to give me the funds to travel over to England, my first visit to England. That was one library that I had. Then I bought 2 libraries at Gander. I bought them. One was the library of the RAF, TC, Royal Air Force Transport Command, where I built the piggery, and when they closed down, they sold their library, and I bought it for $200 or $300. There were 700 or 800 or 900 books, and I gave that library as a gift to the parish priest, Father, I forget his name, at Gambo, because Gambo is where I was born, you see. Then there was another library that the Royal Canadian Air Force had. That was a much bigger one. And I bought that, and I gave that as a gift to the town of, again, I don't know where it is now or if it's in existence now. So that was 3 libraries that I had, one of them before I had this one, and the other 2 while I still had this one. So I've had 4 libraries in my life. The present one, of course, is the oldest and the biggest. It may be the biggest, as I said, private library in Canada. It's big anyway. Senator Carl Goldenberg was a lawyer in Montreal, and he ended up in the Senate. He's now retired from the Senate. And I got to know him because I engaged him as Newfoundland's lawyer in 2 or 3 matters. I got to know him very well. One of the things I engaged him to do was make a thorough study of governmental and town and municipal affairs in Corner Brook. Then I had him as one of our the members of our Royal Commission preparing our case for the Royal Commission on term 29. Anyway, I got to know him well, and he got to know my library, and he used to express great respect and admiration for it. And he said, when you come to Montreal, you must come and see mine, which I did. It was a big library, but not as big as mine. And I've heard of other big private libraries in Canada, but never one that was as big as mine. I don't guarantee that mine is the biggest, but it's 18,000 books, and that's a lot of books.
And you've read all of the books in your own collection?
Those and an awful lot of other books that I've had in previous collections. I read most of those that I saw in Gander. I didn't have much to do except my job, raising pigs. That left me a lot of time for reading. I read an awful lot of those books, and then I read countless books from public libraries. I used to go daily for years in New York City to the great public library on Fifth Avenue and 42nd Street, all day and all night. Go out and get a lunch and go back to the library and make notes, made studies. I read a staggering number of books. And then I've read books in public libraries all around the world. So I've read a great many books that were not part of my library, as well as those that are. Because for about 20, 25 years, I averaged reading a book a day.
You must be a very proficient reader.
And fast. I'm a quick reader, yes, I am.
Even while you were Premier, did you find time to read that much?
Not as much as I had done before that. That was not part of the 20 or 25 years when I averaged a book a day. And in that period, by the way, on a number of occasions I read 2 books, and once only, I read 3 books in one day. That was crossing the Atlantic on a slow ship, and I was sailing steerage on her. I couldn't afford any better way, and it was a rough voyage, and I didn't get out of my bunk. The steward would bring in something to eat, and I just read almost around the clock. And on one occasion I did read just about around the clock and read 3 books. And I'll tell you something about one of those 3 books, which is an astonishing coincidence. I read the book, and the next book I read, and then the next book after that I read. Not on the boat. On the boat I read only one of these 3, but I read in succession 3 books. And I suppose it might be the only time it ever happened since God created the world, since man was on this earth. One was by the great American Theodore Dreiser, Sister Carrie. The other was by the great Gustave Flaubert, the great French author, Madame Bovary. And the third was by the great German novelist, Song of Songs, and his name was Sudermann. These 3 books deal with identically the same theme. Identically. They're different stories, different names, different people. One was written by an American, one by a Frenchman, and one by a German, yet they all dealt with identically the same theme. And that theme, if you could put a name on it, would be the deterioration of a woman. Song of Songs by the Theodore Dreiser was about a girl who rose in the world and then sank in the world. And Madame Bovary, Madame Flaubert's Madame Bovary, same thing. And Song of Songs by Hermann Sudermann. Now, how in the name of God could it happen that any one person on this earth would read those 3 books and read them one after the other by sheer accident, not knowing before he did what each book was dealing with, what was the theme of each book, knowing only that the author was famous, that anything he wrote was famous, and that these 3 books dealt with identically the same theme. That's the greatest coincidence of my life, I suppose.
Just from the way that you spoke about choosing those books, it strikes me that you have a real quest to know. Obviously, you didn't go to those books or because you expected a particular thing from them. You talked about their authors being respected, and so you really wanted to
They're
know.
amongst the great authors of modern times, you know. Sudermann, the German, and Flaubert, the Frenchman, and
Dreiser.
Theodore Dreiser is perhaps, if not the greatest, one of the greatest the novelists born and raised in the United States. All three of them were very great, and you would get to know these names. You couldn't be literary, you couldn't be very literate, you couldn't do very much reading without becoming aware of the greatness of those persons, you see. And if by sheer accident you come across a book by one, you grab it, you read it. Then if by equal accident you come across one by another of these authors, not knowing what it's about, it's by Flaubert, so you read it. Because it was by Flaubert, and you read Song of Songs by Hermann Sudermann, because it was written by Hermann Sudermann, and you read all three not knowing what they dealt with.
Is that the part of the attraction, or all of the attraction that books hold for you, is that they open up a door and that one sort of leads to another? Is that the kind of process it's been with this 18,000 and all the other thousands?
It is that, and it's something else. It occupies your mind. It not only fills your mind, but it occupies your mind. It gives something for your mind to work on. It eliminates the danger, the frightful danger, the greatest danger I have known in my life, the danger of boredom, getting bored. I've always been afraid of being bored, and I've scarcely ever been bored, but that's only because I had a refuge, I had an escape hatch. Books, 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 books. Books, 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 reading no matter what, how tormented I may be, what problems I may have, and they may press on me. And if you're a premier of a province, especially a new province, just becoming a province, having been for hundreds of years something else, and then overnight you become a province. Before the stroke of midnight, you're a province of Canada, and the next day you're sworn in as the premier of that province. A new province that never was a province before, and everything has got to be changed. The system of government, except the rules of Parliament, parliamentary rules are the same, but the financial system, the budget, the way to raise taxes, what is the responsibility of the government that you're now leading as Premier, and what is the responsibility of the government of Canada. The job is shared between two premiers, so to speak, the premier of the province, the premier of the nation. There are things that are federal and things that are provincial. All that is brand new. No one since the world began in Newfoundland ever had to deal with that situation. Only no one else did. By the time I went out 23 years later, everybody in Newfoundland virtually knew what was federal and what was provincial, what was the responsibility and the duty of and the authority of the government of the province and of the government of the nation, you see. But I had to face that the day I became premier. And so I would have, and then there were problems, oh heaven, problems, but no matter what they were, and no matter what time of the day I finished, 12 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, I just had to go to bed and read. And it was the reading that was getting 2 or 3 drinks of rum. It was the reading that was dope. It was the reading that soothed you and got your mind so that you can go on to sleep as peaceful as a baby. There was never a night in my life, in those 23 years as Premier, when I was sleepless. No matter what the problems were or the pressures, by reading, no matter what hour it was, I've gone to bed at 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and had maybe 2 or 3 or 4 hours sleep that night because I had to get up. Maybe there was a cabinet meeting, but always I went to bed to read, not to sleep. And by reading, I did get to sleep. It was like a sleeping pill.
A healthy one, more healthy than most.
Yeah.
Over the years, you've built up some specialized collections within your library, and I'd like to talk to you about some of those. I'm thinking particularly of your Newfoundland collection and your collection on the Wesleys and by the Wesleys, and also perhaps your collection on masonry. Could we perhaps go and look at some of these books?
Sure, I'd love to. I'd love to show you. Because they're the joy of my heart.
Okay, should we go?
Well, we have to get these off because we
You're
can't
going
drag
to need a
them.
bridge for us?
Okay, that's fine now.
Okay, good. Yes, we'll have